The road to the national championship goes through Hammond, Indiana. And with just 5 players left, Gabe Petgorski is setting the pace.
I play better than most people at the table, and I have more chips, like I should be in a great position to win.
With big names Brandon Adams and Shannon Shore a distant memory, Petgorski will try to hold off 4 others to claim the circuit ring and over $500,000. The final table concludes now. Welcome to the World Series of Poker Midwest Regional Championship at the Horseshoe Casino, just a few miles outside Chicago. Hi, everyone. Ali Najad, along with professional poker player Antonio Esfandiari. Just 5 players left in the hunt for the title, including 52-year-old Kurt Kohlberg, an MIT and UMass Amherst graduate, Harvard graduate Bernard Lee, member of the poker media and a poker instructor in his free time. David Doc Sands, 25-year-old, who was at one point ranked the #1 online tournament player in the world. 24-year-old Jim Anderson, who's coming off a $1,000 mixed event victory just a few days ago here. And Gabe Petgorski, the University of Virginia graduate, who is sitting on an overwhelming chip lead. He's going to be the man with the crosshairs on him. And we take a look at the chip counts right now. 6th through 9th went home with some pretty healthy paydays, but the real money is still to come. 15 and 30,000 are the blinds. 4,000 is the ante as our coverage continues. Jim Anderson will be on the button. Bernard Lee will be first to act. Least active player at the table.
Bernard Lee's at the table?
Well, he's managed to get himself into at least 5th place by doing that, so couldn't be all bad.
Hey, the higher you go, the more money you get.
That's true. 6 deuce offsuit for Doc Sands. He lays it down. Ace king for Jim Anderson. Something tells me that hand's not hitting the muck.
Certainly not in this situation.
Raises to 70,000.
Raises to 70,000. Around to Gabe Petgorski in the big blind. He does have a huge chip lead.
Call.
He can afford to defend the blind, and that's what he's going to do for 40,000 more with Jack-8 suited.
I like the call. He's got a massive stack.
Start with like 1.5 or something?
He wants to see a flop.
1.1.
As would I.
Oh, okay, thanks.
Jim Anderson is second in chips with 1.2. He's the man that can put the biggest of dents into Gabe's stack. And here's the flop, 6-7-9 with a couple of diamonds.
That's a dream flop for Petgorski. He's got a 2-way straight draw with a flush draw, and the 10 of diamonds gives him a straight flush.
And you can see from the percentages, despite the fact that he has Jack high at this stage in the hand up against Ace high, he is the favorite to win.
He leads, which I like. He wants to get it in. He also doesn't mind just winning the pot right there with Jack high.
Not going to be bashful with that many outs. And Gabe continues to run over this table.
So far, I'm very impressed with Gabe's play.
The regional championships are simple. They're a series of 4 $10,000 events where the final table gets a free seat at the national championship. There are other ways to qualify, but the field is limited to 100 players total. The winner of the national championship gets a bracelet and part of the $1 million prize pool.
I fully expect to hear that, you know, soon.
Yeah, I hope.
Maybe we'll play a pot together right now.
There you go.
It's a long shot, Gabe. King Queen suited, the throne for Doc Sands.
He's going to raise another gun to 60.
Makes it 60,000 to go.
He min raises with the King Queen here. Pretty standard raise. I would probably raise it a little bit more. I think he's ready to go with it.
60K is about 10% of his stack to start this hand. 10-7 suited for Gabe.
In the small blind, calling the 45,000. I'm not a huge fan of this play. He's out of position with 10 high. I would either 3-bet and put my opponent to the test or probably just fold here and preserve my chip stack.
8 deuce offsuit, not going to help Bernard get involved, and will be heads up. Flop is 8-10 deuce rainbow.
It's a very good flop for Petgorski, obviously because he has top pair. Runner, runner, flush draw.
Runner, straight draw, if you want to go that route.
All sorts of options. Sands is going to follow up with a C-bet here, represent something. There's a lot of money out there. He can't just check. That's too weak.
C-bet, short for continuation bet, which is what we expect from pre-flop raisers, especially heads up in position.
And this hand is going to end up playing itself. Pat Gorski is going to probably check raise all in.
87,000 to call.
How much is it?
182.
He re-raised it to 182,000.
Gabe makes it 182 total.
This is a pretty good raise here. He's leaving room for Sands to re-raise here and maybe think that he could get Pat Gorski off the hand. I like this play a lot.
Gabe trying to induce the 3-bet. No bite from Doc Sands. He lays it down, and guess who's dragging another pot?
The man himself.
Get some, Gabe.
The Gabeinator.
So hot right now.
What makes you say that?
Are you kidding? Look at him.
That was a joke. That was a joke? Get it? It's a joke?
Root bone, Peter. Or call me hot, kind of.
You might be wondering what a root bone is. Well, we talked to Gabe Pat Gorski, and the definition might surprise you.
Root bone. Root bone. Root bone, Peter. A root bone is when if you're rooting for someone at a table, and let's say like I won a big pot and someone says, nice hand, and I throw them like $5. I throw them a bone for rooting for them. That's called a root bone. It's just kind of like a fun thing that, it started as kind of a joke, but now we think it's, hilarious. So we kind of keep it going.
Not totally sure what to make of that. You ever heard someone use the word root bone at the table?
This would be my first, and I don't think I'm going to be using his material in the future.
Well, Gabe's having fun with it, and so is his peanut gallery as we pick up the action. Kurt Kohlberg holding ace-7 offsuit.
80.
80 to go.
Now raising to 80,000.
Check the cameras, but I think Gabe just folded.
I don't know why. He wins every pot he plays.
5-6 offsuit. Not enough for him, but 2 queens for Bernard Lee.
I'm betting he's going to play this hand.
Hold on.
Play all in.
Bernard moves all in.
He's going to ship the whole enchilada out there. 567 total.
Around the curve.
That's a lot of extra cheddar for Kurt Kohlberg to stay in.
It's pretty difficult to even consider calling with ace-7 here, especially against Lee, who doesn't play many hands.
Kurt waves goodbye to 80,000 of his chips, which slide Bernard Lee's way.
What happened to the car, honey?
The same thing again.
Meteor?
Meteor. I was at a stoplight. Whoosh, bang, right on the hood. It misses Mars, it misses the moon, it hits my car.
Good at bluffing? Play poker online at partypoker.com. It's fun, it's easy, it's the world's largest poker room.
The final table continues from the World Series of Poker Regional Championship at the Horseshoe Casino in Hammond, Indiana. 4 regionals lead to the national championship. 5 players left in this Midwest regional.
Dave, how much do you have?
575.
Thanks.
How about you?
I've got 450, 475, 485. About 5.
Doc Sands and Kurt Kohlberg trading chip counts.
Which is standard on some level. I mean, it's important to know how many chips your opponent has, especially when there's such big difference in cash-out prize money.
Well, shouldn't you be keeping track of that in your head?
I mean, it's difficult to keep exact track, and they both seem to be pretty close, so he wanted to know if he was ahead of him or not.
Jim, what do you have?
Less than 1.1, I think.
Gabe folding ace-4 offsuit in the cutoff.
Which is quite surprising given his chip stack and his position.
Can I call you Bernie?
Sure.
Cool.
Just for tonight, though.
Just for tonight.
All right.
He makes me call him sir. Really?
Sir Bernie?
I dubbed B.
Everyone's pretty relaxed with all this money on the line. That surprise you?
No, it's pretty much how it goes out at a final table.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, people are kind of calm and relaxed and gambling for millions of dollars. And at the end of the day, it's just poker. You get 2 cards and one guy wins at the end.
I'm not sure everyone is feeling the same way. Jim Anderson, not quite as jovial. A little more strictly business. He's heads up with Doc Sands. King Jack 8 on the flop. Both players with a piece. Sands checks it over to Jim, who checks behind. Trip Kings on the turn for Jim. Doc still with the pair of 8s.
I think he's going to bet just to find out if he has the best hand or not. Anderson did check behind on the flop here, so he doesn't put him on a king.
Yeah, it's going to prove a bit deceptive. Sands is min betting, however.
Anderson with 3 kings here knows he has the best hand, more than likely.
He's just going to call the 30,000.
Very deceptive.
Safe looking river card for Doc Sands.
Sands now thinking that his pair of 8s and kings is the best hand and is going for a value bet.
His kicker does not play. And a second min bet. And what we mean by min bet is minimum bet in No Limit Hold'em. That is equal to the big blind. Here comes the raise from Jim to 160.
Now he's wishing that he had not bet. He made a value bet, which is okay on some level. If you get raised here, it's pretty tough to call. Yeah, a part of me would have just check called or perhaps check folded, depending on the read that I got.
Nice bet.
Doc lays it down and Jim picks up the pot.
Did you get me there?
I get you there.
You both me there?
You'll find out.
Huh?
You'll find out.
Yes, I will.
Anderson's river raise doesn't get paid off, but at this point, it seems he's just happy to be playing poker.
My name is Jim Anderson. I'm from Worcester, Ohio, which is about an hour south of Cleveland. Although I just started playing professionally. I've played probably since 18, 19 years old, so 6, 7 years. I lost most of my graduation money within a couple months, so I learned it the hard way. This is a very tough field. Every table I've been at, I've tried to recognize the weak player, and it's becoming harder and harder to do.
Jim Anderson can use an amp or two. That kid is low-key. Reminds me of somebody else I know.
You wouldn't be talking about me, would you?
Never. Not me. Wouldn't do that.
Well, that kind of temperament can be good at a poker table. To be relaxed and calm, collected, can be beneficial.
A good point. Bernard Lee with Jack 7. Lays it down. And it's Doc Sands on the button with Queen 10 off.
I see a raise in his future. And more often than not, the small blind and big blind don't usually wake up with hands. I mean, all he has to do is get through 2 hands here.
Collected.
And he's going to ship it in. 409 total. It's always a dice roll. Oh, that's not good for Doc.
Oh.
And that is even worse. 2 aces.
Big blind, Kurt woke up with aces. Dave's got Queen 10 offsuit, Queen of clubs, 10 of spades.
What was that about? More often than not, the small and big blind don't have a hand?
1 in 220 times the big blind wakes up with aces. What can he do?
85-15 favorite, King 5-10.
It's a little song.
Sands has a piece here. Gonna need some help, though, in the form of a 10 or a queen if he's going to double up and stay alive.
One of his more hopeful flops.
Turn card is 7 of clubs.
Less hopeful turn. Now it's 5 outs once for Doc Sands' tournament life. That's not one of them. The 8 of hearts seals his fate as our 5th place finisher. Players don't seem positive about whether or not Kurt has him covered, but indeed he does. It's official. And there are the goodbye handshakes for David Sands. He'll be leaving us with over 131 grand.
He was very active. He played a lot of hands. He played aggressive. He was in there seeing flops, and sometimes it just doesn't work out.
This final table may have some visual symmetry, but the chip stacks tell a different story. Gabe Pat Gorski has led wire to wire. Jim Anderson in second with 1.2. Kurt Kohlberg just surged into third, and Bernie Lee on the short stack. Let's check in with the recently eliminated David Sands.
Overall, I'm really happy with my play. I don't really think there are any spots where I could have played differently. Maybe I could have flatted one hand earlier that I 3-bet and I got 4-bet. But like I said, I felt like I put myself in a position to win. If I win that flip, I feel like I win at least half the time, and then I feel like if I hold with ace-jack, I can win a good percentage of the time too. So can't be too disappointed.
David talking about some of the earlier action at the final table. Clearly, it takes skill, but a little bit of luck, no doubt.
Lady luck plays a big part.
Gabe Pat Gorski has made it 100,000 to go with ace-3 offsuit.
Keeping the pressure on the short stacks, playing the big stack.
Blinds are up to 20 and 40,000 with a 5K ante. Bernard Lee is folding king-jack offsuit on the button.
Given his image and his stack size, I think that king-jack is a clear ship there. There's been a couple of spots where Bernard has folded that I disagree with.
You think he's just trying to move up in prize money?
That appears to be the case. However, he's not going to win the tournament playing that style.
Well, no matter what your style, being a poker player definitely has its perks.
My favorite thing about playing poker is the freedom. Somehow I ended up in Toronto, and I was going to stay there for 5 days. And then I stayed there for 2.5 weeks, and it ended with my friend saying, hey, let's go to Chicago and play this tournament. And now I'm here, and I could only do all this stuff because I didn't have to be anywhere else.
I've gotten to do and experience things that I definitely never would have done, if I had a normal job.
You can pretty much work when you want and have the rest of the time to play or do what you like. Definitely beats a 9 to 5 any day, in my opinion.
What's your favorite part about being a professional poker player?
Where do I start? I think number one would be freedom. You can do what you want to do when you want to do it. You don't have to be at a certain place at a certain time. If you don't feel like going to work, you don't go to work.
Yeah. You're your own boss. And Jim Anderson is the boss of 2 jacks right now. He makes it 90,000 to go. Over to Kurt Kohlberg, ace-10 off on the button. And he moves all in for 635.
And again, this hand is pretty self-explanatory. Anderson's always raising with 2 jacks, and Kohlberg is coming over the top most of the time with his stack.
Just very slight. I don't want to scratch it, that's all.
Jim Anderson makes the easy call. Now, it's worth noting that both Gabe Pat Gorski and Bernard Lee folded an ace, which leaves only 1 ace left in the deck for Kohlberg to connect with and make a bigger pair. Here comes the flop. King, Queen, 6, all hearts.
As you can see on top, he went from having 1 out pre-flop to having all those outs after the flop. Any heart, a jack, or the ace.
Anderson still a 3-2 favorite. Here's a turn card. It's a 9. Jacks are still in the lead. Kohlberg's going to need to hit one of those outs at the top of the screen, or he's going to be hitting the exit.
Tournament life at stake.
4 of spades is a brick. Kurt Kohlberg is eliminated in 4th place.
Thanks, everybody.
175,000 roughly for Kurt Kohlberg, who made the most of his stack early at this final table. But when he played the biggest pot of his evening, he had the worst of it. The Horseshoe Casino sees 3-handed action right after the break. Just over the border in Indiana, the Horseshoe Casino has the best gaming and restaurants in the area. For a great meal or a great night out, hit the Horseshoe Casino in Hammond. Time to find out who can lock up the World Series of Poker circuit ring. 3-handed action about to get underway, but first, let's hear from our 4th place finisher, Kurt Kohlberg.
I think I played relatively well. Made 1 mistake early against Shannon, and then I was fortunate to get in Queen 10 suited and triple up, and then I woke up with the 2 aces, and the last hand sort of plays itself, so I thought I played relatively solid.
Nothing to be too shy about when you're banking $174,000 and change for your efforts. Not a bad payday. No doubt plenty of backup necklaces in his future. That one didn't prove to be as lucky as he wanted it to be. Right now it's basically a 2-player race between Pat Gorski and Anderson. If Lee can find a hand and double up, he'd be right back in the mix.
We know he's not shipping it without a hand.
2 jacks again for Jim Anderson.
Raise to 90.
He makes it 90,000 to go, and this is the time to run good.
And the foul.
It's always a lot easier when you get hands, especially when it's shorthanded. 2 jacks is a very, very good hand indeed.
An ace for Gabe in the small blind.
Usually when the button raises here, an ace is a pretty big hand.
Boy, would this be a good time, wouldn't it? Oh, my gosh.
Probably only 2 or 3 hands Bernard Lee is going to make a call with.
I'm really curious what he does with ace jack here.
Well, we know what he does with deuce 5. Back over to Jim Anderson, 210,000 more.
He doesn't mind getting re-raised. He's got 2 jacks. He's feeling pretty comfortable about his hand. Pat Gorski is an aggressive player.
Any chance he just calls?
I don't think so. I think 3-handed here, this is a clear re-raise.
Anderson tends to agree. He makes it 650 total.
How many do you have behind?
About 1.9.
Pat Gorski doesn't look like he wants to give up.
350 more to call. Though that's clearly not an option.
Anderson really hasn't gotten out of line here, so I think the ace-6 should hit the muck.
I'm on.
Wow.
2.55 million, putting Anderson all in.
You got me.
Anderson makes the call.
I wasn't a huge fan of that ace-6 all in, especially given that Lee's the short stack.
Ace ball, ace ball.
You can just wait it out and get heads up.
He has recovered.
Ace from space.
Ace from space.
Ace from space. Let's do it.
How about a jack from Earth?
All right.
Top set for Jim Anderson.
Couple hearts.
Anything other than a heart on the turn, and Gabe will be drawing dead. It is a heart.
From no life to some life. Look at all those hearts up there.
Jim's still a huge favorite, but a heart would give him a real bad beat here. It's red, but it is a diamond, and you can see the relief on Jim Anderson's face. He is going to double through Gabe to take over the chip lead.
Sir Bernie, how much you got now?
That's fine.
Bernie's still in there, surviving, squeezing his way to victory.
That's Sir Bernie, thank you very much.
Thought I said that.
You know who was rooting for a heart on the river in that last spot?
Thank you.
Let me guess. Could it perhaps be Bernie himself?
Sir Bernie.
Sir Bernie.
Yeah.
Yes.
A lot and littles. 5.5. 5.5. I thought that was 6-8 in play.
King Jack for Gabe,
6-8
who's still licking his wounds.
So if he's
got 20 big blinds.
He's got 8, so I just did the math.
Come on.
And he's going to move them all out there.
2 hands in a row. First 2 times of the tournament.
I don't mind this play, but I don't love it, given that his opponents are Bernie and Jim, who are likely to not 3-bet light here. I think risking 100,000 is better than risking his whole stack.
Is that the first time you've been all in for your tournament life? Like this one right here? Because that last one you weren't technically.
Yeah, right here.
I mean, technically you weren't, so, you know. That's an incredible statement, though. I mean, there's, you know. I can't say that. Hell no.
It was smooth sailing for Gabe Pat Gorski until a rogue wave in the form of one Jim Anderson left him searching for his bearings. Welcome back to the Horseshoe for more of the Midwest Regional Championship final table. While we were away, Gabe Pat Gorski took a pot from Bernard Lee, widening the gap between second and third place. Jim Anderson still comfortably on top. Gabe on the button with 10 deuce suited. He lays it down. 2 queens for Bernard.
Bingo.
Bernard all in for 375. King 7 suited for Jim.
Anderson in a pretty tough spot here. Against most players, this is a pretty standard call, I think, given his chip stack and his opponent's range possibility. Lee, however, being more on the tighter side, Anderson has to think about it.
Blinds at 20 and 40,000 with a 5K ante.
I call.
And Jim makes the call.
Oh, nice hand. It's way off. Nice hand. Good luck.
These are all in the player. He is
Bernard kissing the picture of his wife and kids, which he carries with him to poker tournaments.
7 of diamonds.
Ace high flop with a 7.
Deuce of diamonds.
Hopeful. He's got runner diamonds. King or a 7.
Turn is a 4 of spades. 2 queens still looking good. All Bernard has to do is dodge a king or a 7. Second round of smooches for the family. And they don't do him wrong. Bernard's 2 queens double up.
Nice hand.
Thank you.
Heads over for a fist pump from his mindset coach. Not really much harm to Jim Anderson's stack. Still around $4.5 million even after that loss.
Still sitting very pretty.
What do you do with $4.5 million in this spot? Full speed ahead or slow it down?
Full throttle ahead. You really have to keep the pressure on the short stacks. You have all the chips. You can afford to take some risks here and there, and you can't let them, take the blinds and antes.
Bernard will be first to act on the button.
He loves to squeeze them cards.
Yeah, 10-4 over and out. Queen 5 off for Anderson. He'll make it 100,000.
And again, he's got all the chips. And he's keeping the pressure on the big blind.
Queen 7 suited for Gabe.
I think he's thinking about chipping here. I mean, he knows that Anderson's range is pretty wide open. Oh, he just calls.
He does have position.
Anderson's going to lead out a lot of times. There's a lot of chips in the pot, and he has to take a stab at it.
230,000 in the middle. 7-8-3 on the board.
Check.
Gabe has got a pair of 7s. Neither player looking to bet.
Anderson's check basically says he's giving up.
Board pairs on the turn.
That's a great card for Pat Gorski. He now has 2 pair with the flush draw. He knows he has the best hand. Certainly he thinks he has the best hand. Anderson just kind of gave up that pot.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
It was like in unison, too.
They knew how well I played it.
Huh?
They knew how well I played that hand.
Hey, I gave you props. Nice hand.
A lot of times when you open with those pretty weak hands, queen off 5 and whatnot, you're hoping to just win the blinds. And sometimes when you get resistance, you just kind of give up after the flop when you miss. It happens.
Still surprising to see Jim not fire the continuation bet, though.
Slightly. You should always follow through.
Anderson raising to 90,000 with Queen Jack off. Bernard will deposit his big blind in front of Jim as he lays it down.
I like the way Anderson is playing. He's really adjusted to the 3-handed. He's in almost every hand, as he should be. And he's putting pressure on the other 2 opponents.
Easy to say, sometimes hard to do.
You each get 2 cards, and one guy wins at the end. Simple game, right?
One would think. Gabe will be on the button here. Started playing poker in 2005 while a freshman at UVA. At the expense of his GPA, as he puts it. Read every book he could get his hands on. Spent a bunch of time in the online forums. And I doubt that's where he learned to limp with ace-king, setting the trap.
Raise.
Bernie picks up 2 10s and ships it.
Call.
Gabe calls.
Good luck, bro. Seriously. Good luck. Really. Good luck. Hey.
We'll stand up and split this together.
Good luck. Seriously.
I think that Lee really means it. He might be rooting for Pat Gorski here.
He wants a bad beat. Maybe he just wants a root bone.
That was a genuine, heartfelt good luck.
Lee going back to his ritual of kissing the family portrait.
No tens. No tens.
9 high, all spades.
It's never easy.
What I hit?
14 outs twice.
You might need a widescreen television to pick up all the outs at the top of your screen. There are many. And that's one of them. Pair of kings for Gabe now, leaving Bernie with just 1 out, the solitary 10 of clubs for his tournament life. It's going to take a miracle.
It's never fun to be sitting in that seat with 1 out for your whole tournament life.
All right, here comes the river.
Jack of clubs, close, but no cigar.
Third place finisher, Mr. Bernard Lee.
Bernard says his goodbyes, and he'll pick up over $236,000 to add to his almost $1.5 million in career tournament earnings. Bernie hung on as long as he could, but the race wasn't his to win. Pat Gorski celebrating with the rail, but now faces a daunting heads-up challenge against Jim Anderson. But before that, let's hear what Bernie thought about the final table.
The strategy that I always have at a final table is to go out on my own terms. I'm not going to try to make a move just to make a move. And, that's what I did. I mean, I have no regrets of any hand I played. All I can do is play the best poker I can. If I play the best poker I can, then the poker gods are going to determine that, right? And I'm fine with it. I can go home, head high, and then head back down to Foxwoods and now start playing another one. And I have no regrets. I'm ecstatic. Even if I went out 9th, and if I play that way, I'm fine. And that was the strategy from minute 1.
It's come down to 2 players, a pair of 24-year-olds with their eyes on one prize, the World Series of Poker circuit ring. It's been an eventful final table. Doc Sands bowed out in 5th place. Kurt Kohlberg followed him in 4th. And just before the break, Bernard Lee's 10s couldn't hold up, busting him in 3rd. 2 kids left who might not grasp just how big this is. With the ring just 1 elimination away, heads-up play begins with Jim Anderson holding about a 3-1 chip lead. Blinds are 20 and 40,000 with a 5K ante. Both players are pretty deep.
We should see some good action moving forward. It's down to 2 pretty good players, both semi-aggressive, and it's heads up, and they both have good stacks.
Gabe was at one point the overwhelming chip leader. That honor now belongs to Jim Anderson. First pot of heads-up play is ace-10 against 10-deuce. Gabe has Jim dominated, heading to a flop of 9-king-king. Both players check. Turns the 6 of clubs.
If Anderson checks here, he's basically giving up the pot, which he does. And Pat Gorski checks behind. This is okay. He's got the ace high, and he's probably just going to call a river bet if Anderson bets.
5 on the end. Changes nothing. 210,000 up for grabs, or at least that's what Jim Anderson is thinking, as he measures out a stack of chips totaling 130,000.
Anderson leads out, which is very suspicious. Pat Gorski is thinking, what hand could Anderson lead out here with? If he had a 9, he probably would have bet the turn. Is he really betting a 6 or a 5? That's why checking the turn kind of, he gave off too much weakness there by checking the turn. And so Pat Gorski has to think maybe his ace high is good.
7-8, probably the only hand that would beat it.
Call.
And makes sense considering Jim's line.
And he does make the call. Good call.
First pot of heads up goes over to Gabe. How important is momentum for you when it comes down to mano-a-mano for all the marbles?
It really is just about tempo and, how your opponent perceives you as a poker player. It's really difficult to make a hand, as we all know, especially heads up. You each have 2 cards. There's 5 out there. Chances are nobody makes anything. So it really has a lot to do with who's being the aggressor, who's forcing the action, and who's putting their opponent to the test.
Jim Anderson with ace-jack, no doubt going to take charge. Making it 125 total. Ace-king for Gabe.
This is not a good spot for Anderson. Heads up, these are both monster hands. Pat Gorski is for sure 3-betting out of the big blind.
Well, we saw Gabe limp in on the button in three-handed action with ace-king when Bernard Lee shipped it with 2-10, so he's done some unorthodox things already.
We did, and we know he likes to mix it up, but this is an entirely different situation. They're heads up, he's out of position. I think for sure he's 3-betting almost 100% of the time.
And as we can see, he's made it 360,000 total. Now back over to Jim Anderson.
Ace-jack of hearts is a very pretty hand. Heads up.
But there's no reason to get overcommitted.
No, he's got position. He still has the chip lead. His opponent has to act first after the flop. I think taking the flop here is the correct play.
Board is very dry. Deuce 7 queen rainbow.
I'm really interested to see how this plays out. They both have ace high.
Gabe quickly fires a very small continuation bet.
He has to make some sort of a bet. Betting 215 into 700K pot is a little weak, but he can't just check. That's way, way too weak.
But maybe he needs to bet more.
Betting more is okay. I mean, he's definitely taking a stab at it, which is what he needs to do.
But perhaps Jim would fold the ace-jack to a bigger stab.
It's possible. I think that Anderson thinks he has the best hand. He knows that Pat Gorski plays aggressive, and he knows that he's c-betting almost every single flop here. So whether he bets 215 or 450, I think that he's always calling the flop one time.
Here comes the turn card, the 10 of clubs. Both players turn a Broadway draw.
I'm very interested to see what Pat Gorski does here on the turn. He did get called on the flop. He did get called pre-flop.
Check.
Gabe checks it.
In my opinion, there's no way that he would be checking a very big hand here.
But Jim doesn't seize the opportunity and checks behind.
I think that was a good spot for Anderson to bet the turn and take away the pot from Pat Gorski. But I think that Anderson thinks that he is the best hand and he can win in a showdown.
Check.
Jim checks. Let's see what
Ace.
Both players check the river. Gabe says ace, and he's got the one ace that beats ace-jack.
Anderson could have taken that pot.
Not a bad start to heads-up play for Gabe Pat Gorski, who's got the rail seal of approval. He's all smiles, but it's still an uphill climb.
Poker, like a lot of things in life, it's all about strategy. Sometimes it pays to act weak when you're really in a position of strength. Learn to play better poker for free at the world's largest poker site, PokerStars.com, and find the poker star in you.
A lot on the line here in Hammond, Indiana, as Jim Anderson and Gabe Pat Gorski continue to battle heads up for over $500,000 and the circuit ring. Pat Gorski has narrowed the gap from 3-1 down to 2-1. One double up, and they'll flip-flop.
Pat Gorski here, being the aggressor, has picked up a couple of pots. Looks as if momentum is on his side.
Most definitely. All that cash just sitting out there, waiting to be claimed by one of these two youngsters. Gabe putting his 8-9 offsuit to work on the button. Jim has him dominated with 10-9 offsuit.
Anderson counting out what appears to be a possible 3-bet.
Appears no longer. It is a 3-bet. The re-steal to 325 gets the job done. Gabe wastes no time mucking his hand. I like that Gabe threw his cards in really quickly there. A lot of times you see players Hollywood and take forever, even though they don't have anything. I mean, is there any value to that, really?
You know, there is. You always want to be consistent. Whatever you do when you have a hand, when you don't have a hand, you kind of want to try and do the same thing over and over again. However, in that spot, he's just mucking his hand. You know, he could have acted like possibly he was folding a bigger hand to, you know, had he given off a tell with his raise. It is information.
Gabe gets a walk with Jim in the small blind.
You got enough blue chips.
What's that?
You got enough blue chips to do that. You got to count out 10 every time.
You're right. Well, hold on to the blue chips.
Yeah, it's hard to bet them. I found that like in the last couple of days. Once you get one, you don't want to let it go.
Attached to them.
Hey, but once your head's up, man, it's fine. You know.
Some friendly banter going on.
Ace-Jack suited for Pat Gorski on the button.
Monster heads up.
No problem putting blue chips in with that hand. 2 aces for Anderson.
Not such a monster when your opponent has 2 aces. I have a feeling we're going to get it all in here.
No slow play?
No, I think Anderson has to 3-bet here.
Last time he 3-bet, Gabe folded easily. This time he doesn't have 8-9 offsuit, however. 325 total is the 3-bet from Anderson. 200 more if Gabe decides to call.
Pat Gorski's the type of player that is probably going to ship it here.
Throughout the course of this final table, we saw him 3- and 4-bet very liberally. He's going to 4-bet here to 655. Ace-Jack suited better than the Ace-6 offsuit we've seen him make this move with in earlier play.
You got 1.6 left.
Pat Gorski started this hand with 2.4 million. He's put in 655,000 of that 2.4 million. Looks to me like he's pretty committed. It's going to be very hard for him to fold.
I'm all in.
Anderson ships it.
Call.
Chip goes all in. Gabe calls.
Gabe makes the call, and he's in terrible shape for his tournament life.
The ace of spades.
No chance Gabe folds the Ace-Jack after the all-in.
Once he puts in the 4-bet, he's committing more than a quarter of his stack. I don't see him folding at all.
Jim has Gabe covered.
Good time to get aces.
I've had aces in big spots.
Clubby surprise.
Need some puppy feet.
Club in the window.
Is the tray of spades,
All black.
8 of spades, 7
Only
of
one club on the board. Gabe needs help.
A 9 of clubs would be a good turn card here.
A zesty one.
She's going to be our second place finisher. Here comes the turn. Turn is a 7.
No help on the turn, and Jim Anderson is your Midwest Regional Champion.
Place finisher, Mr. Gabe Patgorski.
Gabe Pat Gorski finishing in second, earning $324 and change for his effort.
Thanks, man.
He played good.
All right, everybody, how about a big round of applause?
Jim Anderson not looking too excited, but perhaps he hasn't gotten the memo that he is now over $500,000 richer. Let's look at the AMP Energy hand of the day. Gabe Pat Gorski sealed his fate with a poorly timed 4-bet.
I'm all in.
Anderson then put in number 5. Gabe called off. Anderson rolled over the Rockets. And on the turn, Pat Gorski was drawing dead, giving Jim Anderson the title. He didn't start as the final table favorite, but Jim Anderson ends it with the cash and the hardware. Over $500,000 for his night's work, while Pat Gorski leaves with over $300,000. No doubt a little disappointed given just how close he was.
Pat Gorski played aggressive. He put himself in a position to possibly take it down. In the end, that didn't work out for him, and Anderson woke up with the right hands at the right time.
It's official. The World Series of Poker circuit ring belongs to Jim Anderson. A monumental win for a kid who seems to be taking it all in stride.
I thought he had a pretty big hand, so, just try to get it in right there.
The 24-year-old Wooster, Ohio native can perhaps set his sights on that Cleveland dream home he's been thinking about. Gabe Pat Gorski held the chip lead for much of the final stretch, but it was Anderson's patient play and a couple of aces that proved to be the difference. A rich payday and some jewelry to go with it. For Antonio Esfandiari, I'm Ali Najad. Good night from Hammond.